Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Tales from the Inside. And now, would you please welcome your host, Kendra Dawsey.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're all doing well in your homes. Welcome to Tales from the Inside, the weekly show at the Commu Studios website, where we tell some stories given a theme. This week's theme is spooky because it's Halloween, even though I keep forgetting time happens. And like, there's a part of me that keeps thinking like it's March 22nd, no matter what I do. But it is technically Halloween, even though we'll probably all be inside, like binge eating candy. So I thought I would talk about something spooky that happened to me recently, which is going to the dentist. A few people, if you're watching at home, you may notice part of my face is not really moving. That's because I had 3 shots of Novocaine up in my mouth to get a crown done. I am very familiar with the dentist. For some reason, having like bad oral health kind of runs in my family. I don't know if it's like a family curse or if it's like a bad idea to eat Mike and Ike's for an entire week. I'm not really sure what the deal is, but I've always been really prone to cavities and really prone to, different things going on with my mouth. So I'm just kind of used to going to the dentist, even though it does definitely suck. Sometimes you go to the dentist, they give you a little bit too much Novocaine and you look like a stroke victim for the next 6 hours. Today actually it's like wearing off. So by the end of the day, it should be okay. But yeah, dentist is just always weird. I've had dentists literally say to me, "What the hell have you been doing?" And the answer was just like drinking wine and going to bed usually, but I do brush my teeth here and there. I've had like 3 of my 4 wisdom teeth out. Last tooth, they had to cut the tooth as it was in my jaw, because apparently I have some big roots. That's what the doctor said to me, or the dentist. I guess it was a surgeon. It always feels kind of, like that's not the creepiest thing for someone to say, like that when it comes to big, that part of your like a part of your body. I feel like big roots is not too bad, but it did feel kind of weird. Yeah, I was planning on like just like having your mouth feel off. It just makes everything kind of off. This trip to the dentist was also uncomfortable because like they were drilling pretty close to like a nerve ending, so it did kind of hurt, even though they gave me 3 Novocaine shots. Yeah, it's just hard. But most of my teeth, I'm probably going to be like eligible for veneers in the future. Also, another weird tooth thing is I have 2 teeth missing, and those are actually baby teeth that never had any adult teeth underneath them. So this probably makes it look like I earn like $10,000 less than I actually do, which is interesting. But I could mostly hide it for the most part. But yeah, teeth, man, teeth suck. I'm tired of them. I can't wait to have Cardi B money so I could get like just a brand new grill, get a bag and fix my teeth. I feel like probably in like 10 years, most of my teeth will be porcelain or another fake like thing anyway. So it's whatever. But I know going to the dentist is like kind of a big like fear for a lot of people. I'm definitely not excited about it. I think I'm so used to it that I'm just kind of like, whatever, like do what you need to with my mouth. But it's definitely, it's irritating. I've paid so much in dental bills, and this is actually why I support Medicare for all, because what usually happens is I don't go to the dentist when I don't have dental insurance, and then I go to the dentist and I have to go like 20 times in a row. Anyway, teeth are spooky. I have some. I might have less as I go on. I might get a really cool pair of dentures when I'm older, but I'm very excited to bring the rest of everyone else today. All of the comedians and guests here. We have them from all over the Northeast today. Our first performer is really awesome. She's coming to us from Brooklyn. Please give it up for Amama Sardar.
Yay, me. Hi, everyone. I know the theme is spooky, and I just got a picture of some guy's penis with his I voted bracelet around it, and I think that is probably one of the scariest things I've ever gotten. Please, I don't know. I turned off my video when I got it because I was just kind of in shock. And for a second, I thought he was telling me to go vote. And I was like, this motherfucker, I don't need a white guy to tell me to go vote. I can do it myself. And then I looked closer and I was like, oh, okay. That's really, if you guys are voting, please just don't put your stickers and your bracelets on your genitals and send them to someone. It's so gross. And it's really scary. It's the scariest thing that's happened. And I'm gonna tell you guys a scary story. So this trumped that scary story. I'm in Brooklyn now. My whole family's from New York. We grew up really Muslim. I don't know if you're listening and you're Muslim, cool. I think the Comedy Studios in Boston, so I'm probably know a lot of white people. But I grew up Muslim, and we believe in ghosts, obviously, a lot of ghosts. They believe in God too. I don't believe in God anymore, but I like believing in ghosts because I want multiple imaginary friends. So it's nice to have not just one, it's God plus 15. But we have a really close family friend and she was pregnant. And I don't know if you've ever seen any ghost stories, but ghosts really like kids just because they can't talk. So it's this is the craziest thing I've said. It's ghosts really like children. It's a scientific fact. I was also a science teacher, so this should disqualify me from any job. So yeah, ghosts, scientific fact, they like children because kids can't talk. So it's they have a friend. So as my family friend was pregnant, she kept towards the second half of her pregnancy, she was like, guys, I keep seeing things. And they lived in a really old house, super old, looked like a creepy mansion, but a mansion where people have been killed, which is all mansions. So if you're rich, you get that. But she was like, I see things, and we were like, what do you see? And she was like, these old timey figures walking around. Obviously, we were like, she's crazy, or she's doing drugs during her pregnancy, which is cool. The kid's gonna come out so cool, you know? So I was like, I'm not gonna stop that. I applaud that, good for her. But fast forward, the child is born and he's just basically like my nephew. So I'm gonna refer to him as my nephew. But as a little kid, he starts to do some weird things around age, whatever, 1 or 2-ish, when they could kind of talk, but not really. So sometimes he would point to the corner of a wall and he would be like, my friend, and he would start to wave in the house. And remember, I believe in all of this shit. So I would see that and I was like, oh my God, do I just leave this kid in the living room and run upstairs to safety? Do I have to bring the kid? If I bring the kid, does the ghost friend come with him? You know, I come first. So I know it's a child, but at the same time, I don't really give a fuck. So I was really just torn because I would hold him and he would just be talking to someone and screaming, oh, that's my friend. And there were a few times where I was like, I'm just gonna leave him on the floor and then I'm gonna drive away. I know I'm babysitting, it's not a big deal. But one night in particular, do you remember the little wind-up toys, the cars that you have to go back and forth a few times and then they roll off on their own? So it's not battery powered, there's no remote control. We're all just sitting in the living room, and also this house is in the middle of nowhere, deep in the woods. It takes, I think it's about 20 minutes from a town, and at least a few minutes from a neighbor. So it's pretty far out. We're all just sitting in the living room having a good time. And then my nephew just starts to do the same weird shit again, where he's like, oh, my friend. And this time there was enough people around that I was like, okay, ignore the kid. He sucks. You're he's going to have this problem later on. We should see a psychiatrist. But the toy, the one that goes like this, just starts to move around the living room by itself. And like, look, I don't believe in God, but man, like I was like, oh shit, like I'm gonna go read, like pray 5 times a day today to make sure that nothing comes near me. That's how scared I was. I was like, I don't know what's happening, but like Allah is real. I believe now. This is the exact same thing I did in the beginning of quarantine. I was like, I'm just gonna believe in God just in case. And then now I'm like, all right. So yeah, that's like one weird story. And then I think I have time for another, but also I don't stay in that house alone ever. The time that I did, I was like pretty young, and I was the only person in the house, and I kept hearing footsteps on the top staircase, but I wasn't like so young that I wasn't gonna like smoke a little bit, and I was just like, all right, like I'm just super high. And then our family friends like came home and were like, did you dig up all the flowers and place them around the house?
Man, hell no, man.
I know. It's just, this is like, tonight I'm not going to sleep. Maybe I will message the guy who sent me a dick pic with the I voted bracelet. I don't know. I might need a companion. I don't know right now. So yeah, the other weird thing is, so I believe in crystals. And crystals, if you don't know what they are, they're magical rocks. Usually, like according to like crazy people and white women, one big circle. And I was in LA, and this woman named Celeste was like, "You should take crystals and put them on you." So I took a bunch and I like shoved them in my bra, because I don't really like wear pockets. I don't carry around a lot of stuff. I have like a little wallet and my phone. That's it. So I just like shoved them in my bra, and then freaky thing, like started hooking up with someone, and he took my bra off, and the crystals didn't fall to the floor like they should have. They just stayed on my boobs like I had bedazzled.
No.
No. And I think the scariest part of that story is that like that was the moment I realized that like men will fuck anyone. Like he didn't. His reaction was like, "Oh my god, I love rocks," and just started taking off his pants. I was like, I guess I love rocks too, man, but that's a little weird. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's it for my spooky stories. Is that good?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much. Yeah. Everyone give it up for Amama Sardar. That was amazing. Ghost in Islam, they're called jinn, right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, because I've heard some people talking about, and there's like cool jinn where it's like, oh, I'll like hang out with you, and then there's like spooky jinn who like will fuck up
like
your
exorcist
shit.
type jinn. Yeah,
but there's some like cool jinn, like that's where the word genie comes from. It's like,
yeah, I
oh,
don't
like
really fuck with that either.
What'd you say?
So I don't fuck with that either. That's not
okay, that's fair. Yeah, I'd appreciate like a friendly jinn. I don't know, that would give me 3 wishes or something. I don't know. I'll see. I've never been that. I like people like have vibes that they've like seen ghosts before. I haven't had anything like that. But after hearing about crystals, I would totally get a crystal dildo just to see what it's like. I mean, like what's the worst thing that could happen? It couldn't hurt, right? Get some rose quartz, put it up there. I think that's probably something on Gwyneth Paltrow's line. I don't even know. She's just selling like pussy crystals. Anyway, pussy crystals, buy them at Goop now. Next, our next performer is performs all over the place, Improv Boston. She also has a few shows on Too Much Red Network, including The Joy of Posting. Please give it up for Rachel Jane Andelman.
Woo!
Woo!
Hey everyone, just to clarify, I'm not performing at IB Improv Boston right now. That would be weird because there's no one there.
Right.
And if there were people there, do it. So that's my old life, and possibly my future life. Who knows what's going to happen? God, my face is big. Yeah, I know the word jinn from Magic the Gathering because I'm not cool. That's how I know most of my things, including like terms like double strike. I'm like, oh, I know what that means. I when I was told that the theme tonight would be spooky, I quickly like went cataloged through my head and remembered that nothing super weird has ever happened to me. I think that ghosts avoid me because I'm so fucking skeptical that I feel like if they like if a ghost like appeared before me and it like blew my clothes off and lightning came down, I'd be like, I don't fucking believe this is happening. Like, fuck you. I just don't give credence to anything like this. So I think that's why ghosts are like, no, why would we bother? That's wasted effort. That's emotional labor, really, from us. But what I do have for the theme of spooky is my prior history as I was a haunted tour guide in Salem for a couple of months. While I was between more permanent jobs. And the reason I was the touring company had a few different tours they gave. They gave like a historical tour. They gave a witches tour that was just about the witches. And the reason they put me on ghosts first is because that's a really great place to start if you don't know a lot of facts yet. Because the other tours are based on like a lot of facts. They're like, you need to know the dates for these tours. But the ghost tours are like, well, you know, we don't really know anything. These are all stories. You can like fudge it. There was actually a funny thing about the tours where you had to be actually pretty experienced as a tour guide before they let you do the witch tours, because if you're someone who's going to Salem for the witch tours, they said that there's a high possibility that the people on your tour will like argue with you about the facts of the witches, because everyone thinks they're a fucking expert on the Salem witch trials, and so you just have to like know your shit because people will like try to like undermine you during the tour, which I think is so funny. Like, why would you go on a tour if you're just gonna be like, that's not when he died, that's not where he died, it was not that hill, it was that hill. It's like, why are you on this tour? But apparently that happened all the time. So they put me on ghosts first, and I did ghosts, and I really liked the ghost tours. I loved I like my little route. I like that it like the sun set while I gave them, so it was sort of fun to like end in darkness, and all the ghost tours like ended in this little alley that I got to talk about like this man who lived in the broiler room under their feet, because apparently there's a lot of like facts about Salem that are just very strange. Just the facts are strange. For example, Salem apparently is filled with underground catacombs because people would used to loot and pillage. It was a port. It was an age of sail, so people would like hide their like goods under the streets so that they wouldn't be taxed. So you're just walking on underground tunnels all the time. That's not even a ghost story. That's just like a fun fact. There's another fact that they're like, oh yeah, see that wall in front of the cemetery? The reason that wall is there is because this all used to be water, and the water would used to like just draw the caskets out into the sea. So they're like, we probably need to put up a wall here because everyone's getting swept away, their bodies and so forth. So we're like, let's put a wall there. But in terms of the stories, I love the stories. The stories were super fun. There was we had I felt like the stories were great because they hit all the different categories of ghost story there are. Like if you wanted like a haunted restaurant next to the cemetery, and they like, oh, the cemetery a family, there was a family right next to the wall of the restaurant, and we think that family is haunting this restaurant because the lights used to go on and off. If you're into those kinds of restaurants, stories, we had that. If you liked haunted bed and breakfasts, we had 2 different haunted bed and breakfasts about a 10-minute walk from each other. You're like, well, here's the big one. If you like big ostentatious bed and breakfasts, here's the big one. If you're more into like a cozy haunted bed and breakfast experience, we're about to go there. And if you're like it also had all the categories of how the hauntings manifested. For example, if you're into a haunting where a real estate business used to occupy the building, but they had to leave the building because they would enter rooms and all the waste paper baskets would be turned upside down. We had that. That was on the menu. If you like ghost stories where they were having a party and they were taking a photo, and in the photo there's like this old creepy woman and no one knew who she was, we had that kind of ghost story. You're like, God, I hope there's like a weird photograph story. We had lots of them. If you're like, I want the ghost story where women would get their hair pulled while they're walking through a building and they look over behind them and there'd be no one there. We had that one. That's the witch house, called the witch house because it's the last standing building from the Salem witch trials. It was like the one of the judges. We call it the witch house, but it was the judge lived there, but we call it the witch house because it's the last witch trial building. So we have that. If you're into child ghosts, guys, don't worry, we have you covered. There's a graveyard where they're like, in this graveyard, people used to see children in the graveyard, but then other people wouldn't see them. Dogs would run around as if they're being played with someone who no one can see. If you're into dogs playing with someone that no one else can see, we had that. They said that the reason is that there was a pandemic or an epidemic of diphtheria, and they're like, what we think happened is that a poor woman, her child died, but she couldn't afford a casket, so they actually unearthed a casket, and they actually put the body of the child in somebody else's casket and then recovered it up, and we think that's the dead child who's haunting this graveyard. And we only know that because there was a thunderstorm that unearthed this casket, and they found the two different bodies in there like 100 years later. We think that's why everyone is seeing this dead child. If you're into those kinds of stories, I just told you one. That's one we had. We also had two different tragic young women deaths. If you're into those, everyone's into tragic young women deaths, right? What else are you into? I don't know. We had two different ones. We had the Ropes Mansion was the biggie. The Ropes Mansion, you probably know it if you do know it from the movie Hocus Pocus. As the tourists would delight in learning, the facade of the Ropes Mansion is the facade of the family house in Hocus Pocus. We always mention that because there's always like if you're on a tour with like 10 people, there's always 2 people who like lose their shit over that fact. They're just like, fuck, this is the Hocus Pocus house. There's always 2 out of 10 or 1 out of 5 if you round it down. Real big Hocus Pocus fans. You could almost be assured of that. So we're like the Ropes Mansion. There was a woman in there, Abigail Ropes, and she was a fucking spinster. She couldn't get married. You couldn't find a guy. And that therefore led to her tragic death, where one time she was cooking and the hem of her dress caught on fire, and she'd help. But of course, because she's unmarried, there's no handsome, strapping young man to help her take off her dress. So she just fucking burns to death. Which is why you need a man, ladies. So they're just like, oh yeah, sometimes you can see like a fire in one of the windows, and that's like that's her lonely spinster ass soul saying, I'm lonely and I want attention. And they're like, sometimes it looks like the building's on fire and we actually have to call the fire station, and the fire station comes, and then there's no fire here. It's just some old ghost lady, and that's a story you tell too. And then you take the tourists out to the garden, and the garden's like this beautiful garden, well-kept garden in the English court style. And sometimes you tell them, hey, people sometimes take photos here, and sometimes they see orbs, and those are presences. And then everyone gets really excited. You always tell people that maybe they'll see something in their photos, and then everyone takes photos and they're more engaged. And that's a little ghost tourist tips and tricks if you're thinking of getting into that profession. But yeah, nothing's weird's ever happened to me, but I do love the stories. If you're into every single kind of ghost, go to Salem because they do conveniently have every single type of ghost under the sun. And that's been my time.
All right, everyone, let's give it up for Rachel and her regionally appropriate ghost story.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, that was awesome. I'm very interested in the woman who didn't have a man. So like she screamed, "Help me!" And like apparently this wasn't a Boston marriage, and there wasn't like a strapping other woman that she would like send letters to over the series of months about like how much they loved each other, who was present that would be able to like take the, burn the fire away. Very unfortunate. Every spinster needs a woman that they're unusually close to and live in a 1-bedroom apartment with, obviously. But yeah, Rachel, so many ghost stories. I like want to pick your brain about all of the ghost stories because there's just so many. But yeah, I wish we had time where you could just like let us know every single story. Unfortunately, we don't have that much time tonight, but we do still have a few people coming up. So our next performer is a regular at Pick a Side Stupid. He's very funny. Please give it up for Rick Harkness.
Mm.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? How you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah, so just to start this whole thing off, thank you for inviting me to the show. I would like to preface this. I don't like scary shit at all. I am a huge believer in ghosts and all that shit. I don't fuck with it at all. Listen, up until about 14, I was sleeping with the lights on because I fucked around and watched the movie Grudge, and that fucked up the whole thing. So yeah, I was well into puberty and sleeping with a nightlight on. So just to let you guys know what's going on. Shout out to the first lady who performed. I don't want to fuck up your name.
Amama.
But I do. Amama? Yes, okay. Yeah. I agree with her when she said, I'm the same way. I'm kind of an agnostic person. I'm not sure God is real, but I'm 1000% sure ghosts are real though. So yes, I believe I'm 100% with you on that one. And yeah, that's how I'm gonna start this whole thing off. And so, yeah. The story I have is nothing about ghosts or anything. Like I said, as soon as I even feel anything like that in the air and the spirits, I go to sleep. So I don't have anything about ghosts, but I do have a story about me and police. And okay. me being me, a lot of dreadlocks, tattoos. I get a lot of attention, sometimes attention I don't want. And this story was from a few years ago when I first moved up here to Boston and I was still driving. And I just got into smoking weed. I know I look like I started smoking weed at the age of 5, but I've only been smoking weed for about 6 years or so. When I first moved up here, I literally was like a baby into smoking weed. So I didn't know too much and I haven't done too much. And I had a lot of fantasies and everything. And so one of the big fantasies for a pothead is White Widow. It's one of these fantasy strains. It's very hard to get a hold of. And if you do get a hold of it, it's usually expensive. And once you get a hold of it, it's not like it's always a special time. So for me, getting a chance to get a hold of White Widow, what happened was, it was my first year literally living in downtown Boston. So I'm from South Carolina, so I don't know anyone. And I'm just up here doing my thing, working, and I just got into comedy. So I have a comic friend, and he's another Black guy. The reason I say a Black guy is because it's important to the story. And so me and him are chilling, we're cool and everything like that. And then I meet one of his friends. And we're all hanging out and we have a good time for a few months and everything like that. And so at my job, it comes up, I get invited to a Halloween party. And so this is big for me because number one, like I said, I just moved up here. I don't know anyone and I haven't been out really. So I'm a very shy guy and everything like that. So this is big. I get invited to a party. Another thing, it's probably gonna be full of girls, so it's just like, oh my God, beautiful girls, and it's a Halloween party. I'm in there. I'm good. So I'm already not even thinking about consequences or even thinking about what our responsibilities. It's my mind is already in fun mode. And so I'm telling my homeboy the comic, and then the other guy is there. We'll just call him CJ. And CJ is there as well. And I'm telling him about, yo, this party's gonna be lit. I'm gonna dress like Doctor Who, which are already, they were just like, they already looked at me like, what? Who dresses like Doctor Who with suspenders? Anyway, that's another story, another time. But I'm like, I got all these plans. And my comic friend, he's like, yeah, I can't go. I got to work that night. So I'm like, fuck. But then CJ is like, yo, you know what? I can go. I don't have to work. And you know what? Even better, I'll drive you. It's like, damn, this is a dream come true. I get to drink. I get to have fun. And I get to be Doctor Who for real, for real. I can play around with a fucking fake wand and be as high as I want to. So I'm happy. And so he's like, I'll drive, and better than that, I'll bring weed that night. I got some White Widow. So right now, when he says White Widow, I'm like, yo, at this point, if you needed a kidney tomorrow, I know the party's next week, but I'm pretty sure I will recover in time for the party if you need a kidney. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's bringing White Widow. I'll let him do whatever at this point. And so I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, come through, bring that. And he's like, I'll even drive that night because I don't even like to drink like that anymore at parties. I'm not picking up on shit because he said, I don't like to drink anymore, even though we're drinking at that point in time. So I'm not putting two and two together. I'm just thinking, okay, girls, weed, I get to be Doctor Who. I don't give a fuck at this point. So it comes to party time. And he comes through, he picks me up, and we got to drive all the way to Worcester where the party is. So we're coming from Dorchester to Worcester. So we get to the party, we're having a good time. Everything's going good. I'm talking to people. Everyone knows, no one knows my idea, my costume. Of course they wouldn't. No one's watching the BBC back then. I'm an idiot. But anyway, I'm still explaining. I'm still having a good time. I'm drinking, having a few beers. He has one or two that I can notice, but he's chilling. So he's doing his job, but it's still something in the back of my mind, like, yeah, something's up. And I'm just not paying attention to it. And so the night goes on, and we get back in the car, and we're about to head back into town to come home because the party's over. And he rolls up a fat ass blunt of, like I said before, the holy grail of weed, White Widow. So I have a party, I'm full of drinks, I've been talking to people, I'm having a good time, I'm good. So it's like, yo, we're gonna smoke this, and then we're gonna drive back, and then we're gonna go to IHOP. And I'm just like, the only way this can get better is if Rihanna jumps in the car right now, and she's like, we're just going to my place, and I can make the pancakes. I know a special recipe. That's the only way this can get better. And so we smoke this, and I'm having a good time. And then I doze off. I don't know if you smoked White Widow before, but wow. It's to this day, I don't smoke White Widow with anyone else unless I'm willing to give them a kidney for real. And you got to go through a series of steps, but that's another day, another time. Anyway, I doze off, and then I wake up to blue lights, like flashing blue lights. So I'm like, okay. I don't remember IHOP having flashing lights, but I guess he took us to the strip club, which I'm like, at first I'm like, I wanted pancakes, but I'm not mad. I get to see Teddy, so thank you for that. I'm not going to be mad at you about this. So I'm trying to wake up and see what's going on, and then I hear a knock on the window, and all of a sudden I'm just like, okay. I didn't know the strip club had VIP service. I don't know where he took us, but thank you for that too. It's not a stripper. It's not a beautiful. It's the police, and it's a white guy with like the stereotype, like he has a mustache and the demeanor of he don't like people like me. That type of white guy knocking on the window. And I'm like, this is not good because I just woke up and we're in the middle of a meeting in Watertown. Not to mention, we're 10 minutes away from IHOP. So we're not even at a IHOP. I'm pissed about that, but we'll get there later. So we're in the middle of a median. The driver, he is passed out. My designated driver is passed the fuck out. That's news. And I'm just like, what's going on? Police officer on this side, police officer on that side. And they're like, yo, wake up, what's going on? And at the same time, I look down between my knees and there's White Widow and weed all over the car, all over the floor. Like you just spilled a bucket of popcorn at the movie theater. Like we can't even hide this shit. It's not no brush it up. I know there's weed there. You know what I'm saying? This is before the shit was legal here. So I rolled down the window. And he said, what's going on here? I'm like, I would love to tell you. We're supposed to be at IHOP, my guy. And yeah, IHOP's not down there. So yeah, I don't know what's going on. They wake up my driver and he's like, oh shit. And they're like, both of you step out of the car. And they're like, whose car is it? I'm like, it's my car, sir. Listen, we went to a party. I did what I was supposed to. Listen, I'm not ashamed to say that I didn't snitch, but I did not exactly cover for this guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, listen, this is my car, but I did the right thing. I told the designated driver to drive because I'm drinking. He said he wasn't. Apparently, whatever. He wasn't drunk. Apparently, he has narcolepsy and he falls asleep at the wheel. He neglected to tell me this shit before this whole thing started off. So, yeah, exactly. So, and this is in the midst of when and this is like the cops are like realizing this shit. Like, so what's going on? It's like, yeah, I apologize. They're like, where's your license? He's like, I don't have one. Like, what? Yeah, I have this whole sleep at the wheel thing. And I was just learning this while I got my hands up like this. And I was just like, listen to this explanation. I was just like, yo, not for nothing, my guy. But if you shoot him, I'm not even going to be mad. I'm going to be like, yeah, he did rush the officers. And we're not going to do no hashtags. That's how pissed off I was at this moment. Because not only did I lose weed, but you got us caught up on some shit because you fall asleep at the wheel. And it's documented. And so, but here's the great thing about it. At the end of the day, the cops, they're like, you know what? You kind of did do the right thing. So we're just going to impound it. You guys come pick it up in the morning and we're going to call a taxi and you go to his mom's crib. And we got off easy that night, but that was one of the most frightful times. And I'm only 31, but I have gray hair a lot. And I think that's what started one of those nights. So yeah.
Oh my God. That's all. That was harrowing. Thank everyone. Let's give it up for Rick Harkness showing us again that regardless of whatever supernatural things are going on, the scariest thing in America is usually the police. I'm glad that you were okay and that they just like took you home. That's very rare. Also, that was messed up of your homeboy to just like be like, oh yeah, like I don't have any conditions that would cause me to fall asleep at the wheel. I'm totally fine driving. That's messed up. That is not a good thing to do. Always tell your friends.
Yeah, that was.
If you are in control of a moving vehicle, just let your friends know that you have narcolepsy. Like there's medications you could take for it, you know?
I can bring fucking Monster Energy drinks, you know what I'm saying? Just like, yeah. Just let me know.
Exactly. That's all you have to do. You just have to inform people. Thank you so much for that story. That was really scary. I would be so afraid. I would try to like cry, even though I think that only works for white women, but like, I'd try to figure it out.
Just put your hands up and be honest. That's all. And
yeah.
It was cool
Yeah. Well, yeah. Sometimes that's okay, depending on where you are. Coming up next, she is a co-producer of Wet Cat Comedy, and she is Mariah Carey's biggest fan. Please give it up for Emma Schmidt.
Woo! Everyone. So I feel like I've always been more afraid of Halloween decorations than most people, mostly because like they're so inauthentic, like they're just so like purposeful, you know, like someone put those there to scare you. Like I want organic Halloween decorations. Like I want like real ghosts. I want real blood, you know? So, thank you. So I mean, like they've always just freaked me out so much, especially the ones that they make noise. I'm like, what are you being so loud for? Especially like when you walk by it in like a drugstore and you accidentally turn it on. Isn't that the worst? That's just the worst when like it starts making noise and I'm like, you get too much attention on you. That's even scarier than any Halloween decoration. So I used to volunteer with my church. I used to be a woman of God, and we used to do like this haunted house in high school. We used to we would run it. I did it with a couple other kids from my high school. We would run it underneath the church, like in the basement. It wasn't quite a tunnel of the church, but it was like, you know, a basement with like rooms off to the side, like a long hallway. So it was already creepy. So I was doing it with my friends, Meg, Abby, Calvin. Meg and Abby are doing like this potion thing. I'm doing like this scary fortune teller thing. And then Calvin's doing this whole like jump scare thing, like where, you know, where he's wearing a mask and he jumps out and scares people. So we did end up having a lot of downtime during this haunted house. It wasn't super well attended. So what happened was I was just, you know, minding my business, not expecting anything to happen to me. But then he did, you know, that jump scare to me as a prank. And I let out a very real scream, like a primal, it was true blood curdling scream. It was, and then I cowered in a corner because you know what? How am I supposed to know? Like I wasn't expecting anything to happen. It wasn't fair. So I got very mad and I was very embarrassed. Then the next day in choir class, I used to do advanced choir. It was with this kid Calvin. And he started telling everyone in my choir class, like how like scared I got. He was like, oh, she got so red. And I'm like, how would you even know that I was red? Because it was really dark in there. But anyway, so I decide eventually, like after like a week of this, I'm like, I've had enough. So you should know that also I was kind of like a mean girl in high school. I mean, like not like popular mean girl. I was just like mean, like, but in a legendary way, you know, like in a really iconic way. I very much calculated this. So then the next week, you know, so Sunday had passed. So on Monday, I go up to him in choir class, you know, as everyone's starting to walk in. And I hold up a pair of my granny panties and I say, hey, I think you left these at church. And then I was like, I guess I wasn't the only one who was scared. And I think that honestly, I'm more humiliated now about doing that than being scared. It was so stupid. It was probably one of the stupidest things I've ever done. I mean, like it was, you know, at the time everyone's like, oh, like, ooh, Calvin. Ooh. But now I'm like, wow, how dare I enforce gender norms and try to humiliate a man by saying that he wears panties? It's not a bad thing. You know what? I actually thought that was going to be longer, so that's actually all I have.
That's okay.
Thank you. I am a legend.
Thank you, Emma. Thanks, Emma, for apologizing to the cross-dressing community through that harrowing tale. I am interested to hear like how you were mean in high school. There's a part of me that would totally watch that Netflix original series of you just being mean to people as a teen. I feel like you probably had some like pretty good insults in there. But yeah, so coming up next, we have our final performer. Rounding out the night, he is a New York-based comic. He's very funny. He's also in a metal band, and once I made fun of him for that during a roast back in the day at the stand. So please give it up for Gene Meyer.
Woo! Yay! Hey, you know what? Give it up for yourselves, okay? Because for coming out to your computer at this time of night, right? I mean, come on. give it up to Kendra and Emma. You know, give it up for 2020. It's been a year. It's been a great year, right? Right? Yeah. I start every set by asking people to clap so it can like create energy for me to work off of, but it just I'm in my bedroom. I can't do it. Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, that's all I have. Thank you. Good night. You guys have been good. All right. So I want to preface this. This is my first Zoom show. I've avoided it just because I don't know. I'm a coward, and I also I've been working all day. I work as a therapist. I did 5 sessions in a row talking about feelings. So I get a little feelinged out, man. But I wanted to. So, and the theme of the show is spooky, spookiness. I don't, what does that mean? Like, what does it mean to be spooky in 2020 in a world I don't know. Like I turned on the news this morning. I literally turned on the news this morning and I swear to God, it was like, first they covered the pandemic and I was like, okay, that's pretty spooky. And they're like, oh, by the way, California is still on fire. And I was like, that's very spooky. And then they were like, oh yeah, there's riots happening in Philadelphia. And I was like, okay. And they're like, and on top of that, a hurricane is about to destroy Atlanta. And I was like, great, wonderful. This is great. This is the world we live in now. Yay, I'm so glad. But that's not even what I wanted to talk about. So one thing I do want to talk about, one thing that's been on my mind lately, one thing that I find spooky is my own experience with an eating disorder. And I thought nothing, it spooks me. So I figured it's important as a man to talk about my experience with that and hopefully make some people laugh. And if not, whatever, I just bared my soul to the world. So it all started, I was a very hyperactive child, which I know is surprising. And I also had a very big nose, right? I've had work to have it reduced since then, but I had like a 11th knuckle on my nose, a big Jewish nose, right? It was like the Hunchback of Notre Dame's back, but on my nose. And kids would make fun of me for it. They'd call me Big Nose and Big June Nose and blow me Big Nose. And that was just the teachers, right? So I developed this complex where I thought, in order to make up for my freakish nose, I have to be funny and be hyperactive. And I would act out my favorite scenes from Ace Ventura in the middle of the classroom, right? And so what happens when you're a kid and you do that, they give you a little drug called Adderall, right? And I remember when I was like a tween and early teen, I really didn't like taking Adderall because it made me feel like a zombie. And I didn't feel like Jim Carrey. I just felt like I was in a coma and kids would be like, Gene, make us laugh. And I'd be like, no, let's study instead. And it sucked. It totally sucked. Mm-hmm. And then while all this is happening, I people are still making fun of my nose, even my friends. So I start to develop this idea that my face is so unacceptable that I need to have a perfect body in order to make up for my face and my weird personality, right? So I started doing, I remember I saw the movie Fight Club with Brad Pitt. And he's very shirtless in it, like aggressively shirtless. I don't even know what happens in that movie. I just know he takes his shirt off and it looks like an iguana's back or something. It's so, the definition, it's like you could cut diamonds on it. And I was like, okay, I just want to look like that. And so I would do like hundreds of push-ups every day and hundreds of sit-ups and like listen to System of a Down and like hate my parents like every teenager does, right? So then I go to college, right? And by this point I had discovered things like alcohol and marijuana and cough syrup and LSD and cocaine and all the life's greatest pleasures, right? And so that first semester in college I almost flunked out. And, because I was doing ecstasy every weekend. And my parents were like, Gene, this is unacceptable. You need to start taking that Adderall that we always tried to get you to take. And I was like, fine. If the only way I can stay in college is if I take the Adderall, I'll take the Adderall. And then I remember distinctly being about 19 and taking the Adderall for the first time and realizing that it was basically meth, right? And the thing about meth and any other stimulant is you take it and it gives you this like euphoria. And I remember I took it and I was sitting in the common room and I was watching that movie where Method Man and Red Man go to Harvard. I think it's called How High, right? And like, I remember watching it and being like, this is a terrible movie. And then 20 minutes later, I was like, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen. Every joke is brilliant. And that is the moment that I became addicted to Adderall, right? And so it was no longer a fight for me to take it. I would take it every day because it would make me, just felt like on top of the world, And so I would do my schoolwork and then I'd be like, give me more. My friends would give me their papers and I'd do that. And then I would obsessively record music on the computer. I just felt so like, right? But then what started to happen was I would just stay up all night and obsessively record music and then get drunk alone and then sleep through my classes and then wake up at 6 p.m. and take more Adderall and blah, 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 blah. And so finally I had to drop out of school because of it. And, one thing led to another. I developed like a really serious substance abuse problem. And the thing about Adderall too is when you take it, you're so that you don't need to eat. So I remember people were like, Gene, you're so skinny. And I was like, right? And so I eventually was sent to a rehab in New Hampshire in Manchester, New Hampshire, right? And I had to stop taking Adderall. So I slept for 3 days straight. And then I woke up and I was like, food. And I just ate and ate and ate and just like rediscovering the joy of like sustaining, like eating food and like fruit and vegetables and pizza and all this shit. And then once again, I was sort of like unaware of what was happening to my body. And then a couple of months later, my parents came up to visit and my dad said these words, quote, Gene, you've gotten thicker. And I was like, and I looked down and I was like, poof, and all that insecurity came back, remembering about the nose and being teased about it. And so I went back into like, after getting sober, I developed this new addiction of like controlling what I eat and binging and purging and like to sort of just this like new thing to obsess over. And I remember it got so bad that my parents made me go to an eating disorder support group. And it was basically a bunch of middle-aged women and me. And I never felt so out of place in my entire life. I remember the first day I went, I wore a Slayer t-shirt and they were talking about like what triggers their anxiety. And, people were like, oh, I think I'm going to be a bad wife or a bad mother to my children. And I was like, well, I don't think the Metallica album that's about to come out is pretty good, right? LOL, punchline, whatever. So it's been something. I know I'm pushing for the time, but I just give me a couple more minutes. About 20 more minutes. So like it's been something I've dealt with. It got, luckily I'm sober now, but it really became this arduous thing. And it's definitely more difficult than drugs and alcohol ever were, because it's not like you can just put food down and just walk away from it forever. It's something you have to deal with every day. But over the pandemic, my friend started a TikTok and he said, why don't you do a TikTok? That's a good way to gain followers. And I was like, fuck you. And then a month later, I was like, all right, I'm so bored, I'll do it. And so I tried doing my whole like cynical metalhead thing on TikTok and I would get like 2 likes, right? And then finally one day I was just like, screw it. And I made a video about my eating disorder and it got 600,000 views. And I was like, what? And it was literally like a joke about me avoiding birthdays so I don't have to eat the cake. And this avalanche of like teenagers were like, oh my God, I experienced the same thing. And oh my God, it's like you're in my head. And so I started making more and more videos about like the stuff around my eating disorder. And I really developed this like huge community of support. And what that did was it allowed me to be more public and vocal about this thing, because so many people were like, it's so refreshing to hear a guy talk about these things, right? And what that allowed me is like to have the confidence to post about it on like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And by being more public about it, it's actually allowed me to address it more within myself and give it less power over me. And it's allowed me to like accept myself in ways that I've never really experienced before. I mean, even to think about doing this and talking about it like a year ago, I would, shit my pants. So I guess the moral of the story is, and one thing I've learned being a therapist and going through all these recoveries is, if you run away from something, you are giving it power, but if you turn around and you face it in any way that you can, you're going to find that you suddenly have power over it, because we are the only people who can truly define ourselves. So I don't know if any of that was funny. I'm yelling. I'm sure my parents downstairs are trying to watch a movie. I'm sure they're like, what the fuck is going on? But it's my truth, baby. And that's what I wanted to share with you guys.
All right. Thank you so much, Gene. That was very awesome. Thank you. That was a very important message. In addition, what is spookier than our feelings, So I completely understand why you talked about it. It was very good. It also seems like you'd be a fun therapist. We just hang out. I'd like talk about all of my shit. You'll give me some metal band recommendations. So it would be great. But thank you. That's a great note for us to end the night on. That is our final performer of the night. Thank you so much for viewing this wherever you are viewing it, whether it's Facebook or the Comedy Studio broadcast. This show is every week, Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Usually Angela Sawyer hosts it. I'm a guest host. And there's always some pretty cool stories because people are just interesting. Everyone on the show is interesting. We're all interesting, and we're all a little bit spooky around the holidays. So thank you so much for joining in, and see you next week.
Thank you.
Ooh, pizza's here.